So if you can imagine a tool that can dock into the saw, like a like a earpiece to a phone or a Bluetooth device, it just talks to one another and tells it, okay, I'm at this angle. I want you to know what it is, and I want you to tell me when I get to the saw. And you set the angle and do your thing. So then if we have a tool that can measure an angle in one axis plus the next by adding some more accelerometer technology, you can measure the protractor angle and then tilt it. You send it, now you have your compound angle for your jack rafters or stuff like that. It's thinking a little outside the box, but I think what we have done is taking digital woodworking tools to the final frontier. We went from basically the miter gauge, which spawned a digital protractor device, which is an angular measurement tool which measures, measures angles, measures heights. It's an inside caliper, it's an outside caliper, it's a height gauge, a trig calculator. It's got a PDA interface, and we've also added a connectivity between the tools. So it's basically a wireless network between one tool to the saw. So if the user wants to be able to measure an angle and he wants to just send that data to the saw, it appears on the saw. So you put it on there, measure it, sends the data, it knows the angle, you're ready to go.
The wireless side will be so that tool groups can work together. So you've got a guy out measuring and a guy down cutting and a laborer working wood between them, that you can send several dimensions down to the saw. In the communication, there's no transposition of numbers. Everything's beamed from one to the other. Or if you're an independent worker, you don't have to go up and down the ladder so many times. You can go up and make 5 measurements, come down to the saw, and those measurements are already here, kind of minimizing the little notepad that everybody runs around with.
Right.
We've converted the angle to also an inside-outside caliper, doing it in inches or metric. Either way can be
Right.
programmed. And it becomes a height gauge as well, so you can actually set your zero.
For measuring the blade of height, the height of the blade, and then you can...
It'll tell you the distance of your reference. So if you want to crank out a table saw or on a router bit or something like that, you can actually set it at 0 where it's down below, and then crank it up and bring it up to a depth of 1/4 of an inch or whatever's required. So it can be height gauge mode, caliper mode, or angular mode.
Right. It's also a non-contact, it's got a non-contact tachometer. You place it up against a rotating shaft with a magnet, you put your thing on there.
You put it up near, it'll tell you the RPM.
Right.
You take the caliper, you measure the diameter of the wheel.
Well, like on a bandsaw feet per second and stuff like that.
It'll now calculate the feet per second.
Right.
Is what it will.
It's also a digital level. So you go from digital
does
protractor to digital level. So the tradesman wants to plumb something or level something. He's got it right there, and then he wants to plumb it, level it, and then fire a beam. With this protractor, it's got dual lasers coming out of each scissor. So it can fire a beam in any angle, any axis.
Not on a tripod.
So I guess we're...
You're going to measure or set the angles.
Right. And we consider kind of a James Bond tool for the tradesman, you know what I'm saying? It does just about everything. It's also a data capturing processing system. If you wanted to copy profiles and moldings, you can basically follow the contour. As long as you're connecting with a device in an X and a Y axis, you can follow a contour of like a molding, and you can create a file that follows that pattern of what you just captured.
There's add-on tips that we're creating. They'll automatically sense what tip has been put into it, and it'll automatically change the function.
Right.
You can override that function if you want to do something different, but basically it can be a tip that comes out for either a lathe to measure, a diameter going on. You can have a stick and a pencil mark, so you can actually turn this, because you have dimensional now, you can actually turn it into a compass. And it can be either by angle or by dimension. Either way. At 0, it's now going to chirp differently. So you can audibly hear where 0 is. And you can program, if you have a repetitive angle, such on the miter, that they're really doing a bunch of repetitive things, cabinets or whatever they might really be working on, where a critical angle to them, which is non-standard, is critical. You can actually put it to that angle, push the button, and that angle can be a programming chirp angle that will give them a different audible signal that they've made it to the area that they want to be in. You'll notice when we turn them on, it also shows you the temperature. These are actually thermally compensated, so in different shop environments, it'll actually compensate for itself. It's how it maintains its accuracy. They all talk, if you wish.
22.1, 9.0.
We're eventually going to speed up the refresh rate so that it repeats the numbers quicker.
Yeah.
But what we've managed to do is take our existing platform technology, modularized it, shrunk the technology down to create something that can be applied fairly easily and fairly affordable to an existing platform.
At
And-
an affordable price.
Yes. We've also added a trick calculator feature. And I will see here, we've added to make a complex,
Yeah, all this.
to make a compound angle like this, you know how tough that can be. So what we've done, we've added a piece of software on the miter gauge such that it'll ask you for a couple of things as you want to figure out what these angles are. So when you engage the miter, it's going to load a piece of software on here, okay? And we go to System 1, so we have multiple levels of a system so we can upgrade later. Now it's going to ask for the number of sides. In this case, it's 4, so we just hit it again, 4, all the way up to 9, okay? And then it's going to ask me for the angle of inclination from the horizon. So no keyboard, so this is your keyboard right there. And then you 35.5, values, number of sides 4, inclination angle 35.5, miter angle 50.8, or the complementary of that. Bevel angle 24.2.
So it automatically tells you the two angles on your saw to set to do compound angles for all the way up to 9-sided angles from 0 to 9.